And so what do you personally invest your money in aside from yourself? Because you talked a lot about investing in yourself. What are some of the investments you're excited about? Where should people look and where do you put your money?
Yeah, so great question. I think this is a huge one that I'm super passionate about. And I'm going to give you three answers, and all three of them I'm extremely passionate about. And I'm not talking like stocks or companies I'm going to give you. I'm saying the three places I like to invest my money. The first is always yourself, obviously. I've talked about that. I learned that from my first mentor, Jim Rohn. Again, self-education over formal education. He used to say, for your audience who's also very money related as well, and real estate and business and whatnot, formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. That's Jim Rohn, and that stuck with me ever since I was young. So the first investment is always in yourself. The second should be in your own business. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, you reinvest in your own business. You're investing to scale it, to grow it, to systemize it, and so on and so on. One of my mentors over the last couple of years, he's still a great friend of mine. Talk to him all the time. He's actually in the financial space full time. He runs his own fund. Extremely successful in every area of life. And he always used to tell me, you can start to get into investments and stocks and the markets and things like that. And you could get, 10, 15, 20, 25, even 50% returns per year, but you're never going to get the returns you would get in your own business. So if you invest in your own business, you could have 1,000% plus returns depending on the clients you acquire and so on and so on. So that's always the second investment that I'm focused on, is in my own business and growing and scaling. The third is and then investing in assets and actually compounding my money and building my wealth over the long term, which I do with businesses. So I invest in businesses, aka stocks, but obviously anybody who's a long-term investor would know that you're investing in that business, not just in a stock. So I'm from the school of, the Warren Buffetts, the Charlie Mungers, and I really try to study these guys and learn from these guys. So you could say I'm an international value investor, if you want to call it that, if I had to really label it to clarify it. So I look at businesses internationally and I'm building my portfolio. I'm invested in a few different places. And I just love to study different businesses and look at the long-term perspectives of those businesses, looking at the fundamentals, looking at businesses that are heavily mispriced and undervalued by the markets. There are some great ones today, and I like to invest in those and build my wealth over the long term. Like I said, I'm not a big believer in short-term success or quick trades, so I don't do trading. I don't do day trading or swing trading or any of that nature. Very much just in the investment lane. And again, if you wanted to call it, it would be long-term international value investing. And one thing that Warren Buffett says that I'm a huge fan of now, and I really understand nowadays, is he says, I'm a better investor because I'm a great businessman, and I'm a better businessman because I'm a great investor, right? So those two things are hand in hand. And when you start to analyze and study, companies, and you look at their statements and cash flows, and you look at the fundamentals, their management, how they're run, how they're operated, you start to really understand what a great business is and what a terrible business is. And when you start to see that in your investment lane, you can then apply that to your own businesses, to your own entrepreneurship ventures. So that's where I would invest. And that's kind of what I'm up to nowadays.
Love it. And so do you do any types of like S&P 500 like ETFs, or like do you strictly just invest in like undervalue, like value investing?
Yeah, no, I don't invest in any ETFs or funds. I actually pick and choose the companies or businesses that I want to invest in. I think that's a great start. And that's actually how I started as well. Initially, when I started investing and built my first account and started building my portfolio, I was invested in a couple of different ETFs and funds and whatnot. And those, do great in terms of average returns. I mean, we've seen it historically. About 5% or so, plus 2% or so for inflation. You're getting about 7% returns roughly on average. And those have, been outperforming a lot of companies or a lot of great funds over the last 20 years. But if you scale it out again and look at over the last few hundred years, that's usually not the case. And the people that are generating the returns that I'm after are investing in companies and businesses that are specifically chosen. Because when you're investing in funds or ETFs, you don't really have a choice. If you're invested in the S&P 500, you're invested in 500 companies. You could like 20 of them, but maybe you don't like the rest, right? So you don't really have that choice. You don't have that option. So I've educated myself. There's a lot of books here behind me that are investing books. One of them right here is by Ray Dalio, the big one facing out, Principles for Life and Work. I'm sure
Love
you're familiar
that
with
book.
it.
Great book.
Yeah. So, Ray Dalio is obviously a great investor. There's Charlie Munger's right at the top over there. There's a couple books I said, like, as I mentioned earlier, by Buffett. There's a few Peter Lynch books right behind me. And there's a bunch of others. I mean, I can give you some if you like, but there's a lot of investing books behind me. And that's because a lot of my focus has shifted in that direction. And I think if you're trying to be like they talk about in The Intelligent Investor, which is also up there in that top shelf by Benjamin Graham, Warren Buffett's mentor, it's the Bible of investing, they say. And one of the things he talks about is you're either the enterprising investor or you're just the investor who's pretty much the passive investor, right? I think that's what he calls it. So I think a lot of people start as a passive investor, and that was my journey as well. And then if you really want those higher returns, and especially if this is something you're passionate about and you want to pursue, you want to pivot into being the enterprising investor. And that's what I do nowadays.